And we are just getting underway. A long day, but a great one here on this second Saturday of the championship season at Gulfstream Park. Take a look at the live conditions here from Hallandale Beach, our great racing cathedral here in South Florida. Lots of turf on the card. We are indeed fast and firm. And Tony Martinez, a grade 1 track superintendent, he and his crew out there doing some finishing touches before we start the first of 11 at about 11:55. Acacia Courtney, Jason Blewett, a happy Claiming Crown Day to everybody out there, and this is always a good one.
It is. It really is. It's kind of like a Breeders' Cup style championship day for claiming horses, so that's where they really get to take center stage, and a lot of our old pals on the scene today. And it's always a fun day because you get to see some horses that have maybe started in the claiming ranks and gone on to accomplish some great things. It seems like every year we have either graded stakes winners or graded stakes placed horses. Even today you've got Shecky Shabazz, third in the Breeders' Cup, so really great card, and good luck to you because these are big competitive fields.
Absolutely. And before we go forward, this is our annual weekly rite of passage. Let's just take a quick step back and give you a little recap at a near $2,000 $1 payoff in yesterday's Stronach 5, which obviously Acacia, looking at the win mutuals in that far right column, started out very formful and logical, yet things maybe got a little haywire in terms of some good prices, but still paid pretty nice, considering that second winner paid $240 up in Maryland.
Yeah, absolutely. You had a heavy favorite winning there at Laurel Park in their nightcap, but in our nightcap at Gulfstream Park, that was not the case, with Sweet Story getting the win to pay $39.60. So, as always, a big payoff with that low takeout.
Now, as we move forward, speaking of big payouts, we've got, how do you like, $300,000, the guarantee in today's Jackpot Rainbow 6, which begins in earnest with race number 6. It is all about the Claiming Crown Stakes. You've got 6 starter stakes throughout the sequence. Good stuff there. And a couple of carryovers on the card here as we shift into a fast and firm live picture of the clubhouse turn, backdropped, of course, with these 2 carryovers, mainly the Rainbow, of course, and we've got some dough carried over in the Super.
Absolutely. 2,400 there in race number 1, which is a really nice maiden special weight race to start things off with the fillies on the turf. So a good place to play around there because these are the fun races. You may see some future stars down the road starting right here, early part in the card.
Yeah, good segue into that upcoming 12-horse 2-year-old filly maiden special weight on the turf as we jumpstart the program, going a mile shortly before noon. And how you attacking this early pick 5?
Well, both sequences today, I had a tough time. I ended up using 5 horses in the opening leg with these 2-year-olds. Just a lot of them I haven't had a chance to see in person before. I do like having 2-year-old races start a multi-race wager. You can see how the board is playing. Early, she's my type, who's actually my top pick, taking early money. This barn has been on fire with 2-year-olds this year, but you've got some second and third time starters with really good experience as well. Then we kick off the Claiming Crown with the Express in race 2. I'm using Fast Pass back from Korea, which we'll talk a lot about later. And then George Navarro just looks absolutely stacked today. It seems like many chances this afternoon using Tail of Fire. 3 horses. We have another maiden special weight. This time, the boys on the turf in race 3 using 3 horses in there. And then we continue with the Claiming Crown races in the 5th with the Distaff Dash. I'm going to stand alone with Thinkin' Cowtown. A little bit of a shaky single, but I needed to find one somewhere.
I hear you, but I do think she's the filly to beat and got a very good effort, of course. Her strength is that last start, and maybe the most important start, and the reason she's probably favored today off the claim for Rich Averill, and Georgina was second best behind the very accomplished and quality-filled Ladies Island. So I like her as well. We'll set sail again with the 12-pack in race number 1, and you've got the good mix and just an omnipresent theme here over the next 3-4 months where you've got a pretty large contingent of Kentucky shippers, some well-connected first-time starters, and in the end, Acacia, I opted to go with one of those Kentucky shippers on top, and you do have clearly a major player here and proven form on the turf with the 5 Hurricane Breeze.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this filly's last race at Keeneland on a good turf was very strong and past the plate came back to win with a 72 buyer speed figure next time out. Certainly the pedigree on the bottom side is there and just has had a few starts already under her belt for Brendan Walsh. And we're happy to have Ricardo Santana Jr. in for the weekend to ride, riding in the Clásico del Caribe tomorrow as well. Again, she's my type of French bred. Took a stab with this one, just kind of looking through as I went horse by horse. Again, the Clement barn this year, just with 2-year-olds in general, has been very, very strong. Tyler Gaffleone up, taking a first-time starter, thinking this just might be a little bit of the spot. But I did want to mention the number 11, Tamora, have to catch a glimpse. An interesting one for Rodolphe Brisset as well.
That's pretty cool. Not debuting, of course. You might think of Catch a Glimpse. I mean, automatically, I think of Mark Casse and Gary Barber, but obviously this one owned by a different outfit with a good trainer, and we'll see what she can do. A tough post and a very big price in the early wagering. Let's emphasize early. 30-1 right now with about 60 out, give or take, to that Claiming Crown opener. Now we're into the stakes here and a good scene setter in general as we move on to a very classy crew, of course. I think the story of the race, though, it's about Fast Pass and the fact that he's probably going to get a fast pace to attack here, and ultimately how you want to proceed and how you feel about this classy gelding who's had a breakout 2019 campaign. Now, he's getting back into action here. Peter Walden, you'll hear from Peter during our live feed a bit later on, opted to give this horse a little bit of time after going over and facing Blue Chipper in South Korea. Here's his recent workout from November 30th, and you'll hear Peter expound upon this breeze. He told me basically he wants and wishes, world's not perfect, wishes he had another key workout under Fast Pass going into this breeze, or going into this race, rather. I also asked him, is he a good workhorse? And he said he can be a little bit on the lazy side, and I think you get a little sense of this considering Viva Forever, to me anyway, really clearly outworked Fast Pass back on November 30th.
Agreed, for sure. And you will see him in those blinkers, and I'm sure he told you the same thing. I spoke to Peter this morning. He said he did wear his blinkers in South Korea. He's wearing them again today, and he has been working in them. So in case you were looking at the form and any confusion there, is it's not listed in South Korea. They consider a different type of equipment there. So he wore them in Korea. He's wearing them again today. And he obviously ran against good company over there. And you take a shot in a race like that, and it can sometimes be taxing with shipping, coming back, getting a little bit freshening, and some really key points there. Great nugget from Peter. But this is a horse, I agree with you. I think he's going to get the right kind of pace set up in here. As far as the Navarro runners, I opted to use Tail of Fire in second, who's just is tactical and picking up what I think is one of his go-to riders in Amiseo Jaramillo.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, George also has the 7 Why Are You Awesome, who's had another, much like a Fast Pass, maybe not claim for as little as Why Are You Awesome. I mean, they picked this horse up for only $7,500. He's been so good on the year and has kept really good company with good figures. Again, a very nice way to start the Claiming Crown Stakes with the Express in Saturday 2nd. To the turf we go. We step back out of the Claiming Crown action and bring on another group of 2-year-old maiden special weight types. Nothing wrong with some maiden turf. And looking around, there's some guesswork to be had. I mean, Acacia, essentially this is a field, by and large, dominated by either first and or second time starters or horses that are just flat out trying the turf for the first time, like the 6 leading west for Jason Service. I look at the pedigree, much like the Clement first you took in the first race of the #1, who we both took here, and Make a Strand. And, man, that European pedigree, or at least the European bloodlines on the female side, I got to think grass is where it's at.
Oh, absolutely. And especially looking at the work tab, very sharp for Todd Pletcher, too. Not to mention, as we know, this barn certainly fires come the championship meet at Gulfstream. Actually, 6-1 on the line. I think that this one will probably take a little bit more attention than that, just given the connections. And I think, you know, you have a mare that was multiple stakes place, one on the grass. Sibling was a 2-time turf winner. So I think this one should be very sharp in debut as well. I was a little bit intrigued by Dr. Doyle. I don't know about the stretch out in distance, but one thing I think is kind of interesting is that Jane Sabelli's trained the whole family. She's had all the siblings. Here's to Mike, blue chip prospect, who just won the other day. So kind of cool when you keep it all in the family. And I guess that she's gotten to know about the siblings a little bit.
Well, there's something to be said, idiosyncrasies. We all have them, so do the horses, and you pick up probably on little subtleties that the siblings all have. And you would think this might be a tough spot, although this filly, or colt rather, by Commissioner, got a good figure in his big priced Meadowlands career debut. You would think, being by Commissioner, who just missed winning the Belmont by about this much, he's going to like more ground.
So we'll see what we get today, but always, I think, fun to see when they keep it all in the family.
Definitely. Now let's move on to the 4th race here. We've got the Claiming Crown, that is a Glass Slipper on the dirt, going a mile. I think the filly to beat, or mare in this case, is the 2 Liza Star to me, and she's been unbelievable for Luch and Peter, off a real bargain type pickup right around Preakness time for just $62.50 here at Gulfstream Park. Can she go a mile though? I thought she ran well going 7 against a better field. Now you're talking though another furlong, and to me that's the biggest question about this race.
And you've got some horses that are very good at a mile, are very well tested, and are going to be very tough in here. I have the utmost respect for her and what they've done with her, of a very low price claim for sure. She's got natural speed as well. Both you and I end up on the same horse, in fact, in Cuddle Kitten, who, a mare by Kitten's Joy, turned out to be a very good dirt miler or so, and she's just on a roll. I mean, she's trying to make it 5 in a row, which is impressive in itself, but just given what she's done lately, freshened up since that big win at Parks last time out in Stakes Company, thought she was a little bit of a standout.
And a little bit of maybe a wild card in. I do see, and I took a long look at the 4 Expect Indy, who's an Indiana bred, who's done, I mean, really put up some big numbers and a quite admirable type career. Just looking at her win totals and percentages, is she this level though, coming in for a very shrewd outfit here in Gumster Stable? It
absolutely is, and that's the question. How does she stack up? But I thought if there's going to be a lot of pace, she could be one, maybe not to get a win, but maybe to pick up pieces at a little bit of a shorter price. And it seems like this barn does very well with these kinds of Claiming or Claiming Crown weekend type horses.
Oh, Georgina's top class when it comes to horses like this. And look, the proof is in the pudding, turning the page and coming up to race number 5 and looking at the filly mare Claiming Crown Dash at 5 furlongs on the turf. When you consider where Thinking Cowtown, who was kind of all over the map as more or less a big price, kind of also ran, and then Rich Averill and Matisse Racing claimed her mid-July. Later up, they bring her back, and here, although she didn't win, and I wonder ultimately how cranked Ladies Island was for this race. You would think perhaps they had her maybe at a B level because that's all they needed, but still, this was a no-quit type second from Thinking Cowtown, who just did not want to back down or lose to a quality stablemate of hers who's been known to crank out, I mean, some hugely fast and impressive races. I mean, she is one talented racehorse in Ladies Island, and I think much maybe like even a Fallen Leaf, perhaps not at this level, you're seeing, though, just a very prescient type claim from connections that are very good, ultimately, Acacia, quite simply in situations like this.
And you bring up a good point, because you watch the race and you say, oh, well, Ladies Island was actually shortening up a little bit, but she is a very, very good horse. And she runs on any surface, too, which is incredible. But I thought Thinking Cowtown showed a lot of tenacity, of keeping on late after a little bit of a freshening in her first time with this barn. And I believe this Claiming Crown weekend was the goal all along for her. So just a nice little building block kind of race coming into here. And I think that despite the fact she hasn't won since September of 2018, I think this is going to be the perfect spot for her. Beyond that, as you can see from our picks, I think this race is just a giant puzzle. I used number 4, Band of Angels. I mean, speed, but just has some gaudy numbers as well.
Oh, her out-of-town races have been very good, again, with some fast figures for Navarro. There is so much speed in this race, though. And in the end, I just played this 5-furlong turf sprint as more of a meltdown type race. And thinking Cowtown, the good with her is she's more of a one-run type closer. So it does look like she could be the now horse, and she's going to get a good trip, you would think. I've got Blue Magic second. As we take a little time out here with the first 5 down, we set sail 300 large plus in the Rainbow Six. Well, a 4-win Friday for jockey Rod Ortiz Jr., who is not riding here this afternoon. We do have a bunch of new riders, for lack of a better term, like Ricardo Santana and Jose Lascano in town to ride today, and Carmouche. I haven't seen Kendrick in person in a long time. I like Kendrick a lot. Now, Rod, of course, up facing Maximum Security. That's a real nice late-season matchup in the Cigar Mile between Max and, of course, Spun to Run.
Oh, good field top to bottom for sure. And we're always cheering on our Florida Derby winner, Maximum Security, who's been fun to follow on the big stage, and glad to see him continuing in racing, and we'll see what's in store for next year for him as well.
And another big day, and note early start time here tomorrow morning, essentially, because we do have an 11-race extended special Sunday card. First post, 11:40, 11:45 a.m. It's Caribbean Classic Day, and what a nice field and a big field. We've got some numbers. Last year it was Kukulkan and everybody else. Not the case this go-round as far as the centerpiece of the afternoon with that $300,000 purse.
And speaking of Rod Ortiz, there he is on Kukulkan, who we'll see in the Confraternity Cup a little bit earlier in the card, facing Older, and then that big field, he will be riding Tibau from Mexico, one of 3 Mexican runners, in fact, in that nice big field at 12.
All right, now there's your field, 12 ready to rumble, an 11-race early start Sunday here at Gulfstream Park for the 3rd running of Caribbean Classic Day. Let's switch gears. Of course, the Rainbow Six is first and foremost today, $300,000 the guarantee. It starts in race 6. You get all stakes throughout the sequence, and what is your plan of attack?
Ooh, I had a tough time with this one. I stepped it up a little bit. Given the guarantee and just given the quality of races and the large fields, it kicks off with the rapid transit, and I'm using Royal Squeeze Yodelie Who, who's been fun to follow for Safi Joseph Jr. Heel from Safi. Jason caught up with him a little bit earlier. Then you've got Sheki Shabazz, 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. I also included, though, Rocket Heat, who I think is very good and has been facing quality as well for Mike Tenuzo. This is the race that I wanted to include. Tiger Blood was forced to trim a little bit. Iron Horse in race 8. I like a long shot and Bobby G to the rail. Not on top, but to use in there. And Edgar Prado been on a roll lately for sure. As we continue on, Arabella Bella, I thought perhaps the one to beat in the Tiara, a very wide open race. And then the last 2 races on the dirt as well, the Jewel and the Emerald. These are ones you may want to use a few horses in there. Really good quality, and excited to see. In fact, Forest Fire, Maryland Million Classic winner, one of the most beautiful horses for John Service I've ever seen. Glad to see him here in Florida. Yeah, he is gorgeous.
Oh, good. I'll look forward to seeing him in the person. I've never seen him race before, so that's good to know ahead of time, without a doubt. And as far as this opening leg is concerned, you and I, Acacia, we see this race just eye to eye, very similar fashion between the 4 Royal Squeeze, who 6, 7, it doesn't matter. He's just been top class all season long for Imaginary and Elizabeth Dobles. And then you've got the breakout, just the breakout second half of 2019. He's been more of the 6 Yodelie. It's kind of been like a Johnny come lately from late July on. I mean, he has really put the pedal to the metal. And as you correctly noted, you'll hear from Safi later, and I'll just wrap by saying I do like with Yodeleihu, not just his obvious razor-sharp form, but he can take the heat. It just seems like he's a really nice horse in the sense that no matter how the race plays out, he'll be in that first flight, and he is willing to really get in a dogfight.
And in a couple of distances as well. I did give a slight nod to Royal Squeeze. He's set the pace before. He's come from a little bit further off of it as well. So given what he's been facing, he was fourth in the mile sprint this summer. I think Elizabeth Doble's done a great job with him since claiming.
And Benefactor, of course, the 9 for Jorge Navarro, has kept a terrific company, mainly Lasting Legacy, who's I had to look him up. I was not familiar, and Lasting Legacy has beaten Benefactor a whole bunch of times in some fast races up in Jersey, and horse that's done very little wrong for trainer Jason Service. So, yeah, some good company there out of town for Benefactor for Mr. Navarro. We turn the page. We come up on Saturday 7th as we move right along and jumpstart that late pick 5 with the Claiming Crown Canterbury. Shecky Shabazz, 1 of 3. He's not a single for me. I think he's got some competition in this race, mainly the 5 Tiger Blood for the Clasarises and the 9 for Aqueduct Mike Tenizzo, who I'm happy to see down here, and the 9 Rocket Heat has been very good as well. My single, and here was my game plan. I like Leotone. He's going to be a clear favorite in the Jewel. I'd rather just stand alone with him for a pretty pricey $48 ticket, and that way I've just got room to maneuver a little bit, basically in that second and the cash out leg, race number 11. So this is all for me anyway about Leotone, but what a nice race. If I was to pick my favorite Claiming Crown stake on the card today, Acacia, it's going to be the Canterbury, just because of those 3 horses, and mainly, of course, led by Shecky Shabazz. And you talk about a horse who switched to Jason Service, got to more or less a 5.5 furlong turf sprinter, and he's gone through the roof, and that nearly culminated with an upset win at 5-1 last time out in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. He sat the pocket, got an amazing ride from Murad Ortiz, just could not reel in Belvoir Bay, who was terrific for trainer Peter Miller.
Yeah, she was very impressive that day. And just look at the quality of what he's been facing. And in that big field in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, he was only 5-1. And that's another impressive thing, too. He never gave up. He never stopped down on the inside. I will say he's a little bit of a quirky horse at the Breeders' Cup, and you might have seen this, too. He dumped the rider a couple of days ahead of the race and was just really acting up on track. And I actually saw a tweet from Adam Rice, who had trained him for a lot of his career, and he was like, that's just Shecky being Shecky. So that's just how he is. But we're happy to have him here, and I think he's a perfect fit in here, but he's got to have his running shoes on.
He's also, there was a time, and maybe Pete Aiello, who's standing by and in the wings and not mic'd up. Pete may remember a time, I get the game has changed, maybe 15 years ago, and even before that, there was like a rule of thumb. It was taboo to bet a short price contender running right after the Breeders' Cup, with the feeling that, you know, they left it all on the track wherever the Breeders' Cup was that year, and you're potentially dealing with a horse who was razor sharp and now maybe a little bit over the top. And if that is the case, I get he's still lightly raised for Service. I mean, he's got 2 legit foes in Tiger Blood and Mikey T's horse and Rocket Heat.
Yeah, he certainly does. Looking at Tiger Blood and just what they've done with him, I mean, all of his turf races have been incredibly impressive. His lone beat for this barn on the turf came behind Fastboat at Kentucky Downs, which is always a little bit of a quirky track there.
At 6.5,
at
too.
6.5 as well, and perhaps not his sharpest distance. I'm such a big fan of Rocket Heat, as I'm sure you are too. And look, again, the company that he's faced and just what he's been running against, just a very tough horse coming off a nice win at Parks.
All right, really good field in the Canterbury. Let's move on to the Claiming Crown Iron Horse that just doesn't, at least as far as I'm concerned, feature a clear cut.
No.
That's the horse to beat.
Look at our picks.
Yeah, we're all over the map. In fact, I'm going to just box up, actually. I'm going to throw out all those colors and probably maybe 3 or 4 horses, box them up for a nice cold super box. But anyway, the neat thing about this race is the fact you've got the last 2 winners of the Claiming Crown Iron Horse both coming back. Salsa's Return, who upset the field last year at a big price, and the ageless wonder, to Cuban Brothers U, who's on the verge of his 10-year-old birthday and is running in his 4th consecutive Claiming Crown Iron horse. He's amazing. And we wanted to pay tribute to both of those horses, so we whipped up, I think, a pretty cool idea, basically just having 2 Cuban Brothers U 2 years ago on top, Salsa's Return down on the bottom, and you can just look and watch these horses basically in sync, winning the last 2 editions of this stake as we go a mile and a 16th over the main track. I see a fast pace. There's a lot of speed throughout the afternoon, and most of these races have fast horses that are probably going to carve out some fast fractions, and I'd like to see 2 there, who at times can be a little bit of an in-and-outer and maybe a little inconsistent. It does seem like he's riding a little bit of a recent high for trainer Ralph Nix. I'm hoping he can pick up the pieces here with Julian.
I like it, and that was a horse I actually looked at quite a bit. This is a very tough race, and clearly Dizzy Gillespie, the only one we have consistent in our picks in here. I took Ruler of the Nile, who's just been sharp. This is a horse that has shown speed, but has also been game and can stalk just a little bit if need be, too. So I'm hoping he gets a more patient ride from Ricardo Santana Jr., who's ridden him in the past, and he's able to kind of just sit in that good pocket, pick up some of the pieces late.
And Salsa's Return for you, who I think that Claiming Crown Iron horse, although it might to some, and I was kind of half in, half out, remain a high water mark. It seems, although he didn't win 10 races on the year, his recent form up north before shipping back to Florida was pretty good.
Yeah, it has been. He didn't win last time out as the favorite, but he comes out of a race with 2 next out winners and had a good win 2 starts back at Monmouth, going 9 furlongs.
Very difficult race. You've got Peter Walder again with Dizzy, and he's running 3 in the race, Peter Walder, in addition to Dizzy Gillespie. A very difficult Claiming Crown Iron horse. Let's move on to race number 9. We've got the Tiara here. This one for 3 and up fillies and mares and a mile and a 16th. And I'm going to take a local, although this is a day very much about snowbirds and horses shipping in from out of town who have targeted the Claiming Crown. I just like the overall recent ascension and consistently good body of work for the 9 Una Luna, who has just learned to be a pretty potent off-the-pace type turf closer.
Yeah, she certainly has. The only thing I don't like about her is that she's finished second 4 times in a row. And I know that they've all been consistent finishes. They've been good races. They've been against good horses. She's been beaten by some in this field, and I have the utmost respect for her. I just hope that she doesn't get stuck in second gear once again. Really, I ended up with Arabella Bella. Her last couple of races have been showing speed, but she's the type that has come from off the pace in the past. And I think that they found that going a little bit longer is probably what she prefers.
And then we have, you talk about a rarity here, but a nice one at that, and a pleasant surprise, Bruce Levine, who... I mean, I've been working here over 2.5 years. I couldn't remember the last horse Bruce Levine started here at Gulfstream Park, but he Flying Peace Stable, very shrewd and sharp and crafty outfit. We like them quite a bit. They run horses all over the East Coast. They've got VIP Nation, who once again, like many on today's card, just seems to be riding a real nice high lately.
Yeah, but she's turned into a nice filly on the turf, certainly. And even if you look and say, well, she was well beaten, the company of who she was well beaten by, you see 55 in the running lines, a few races down the Mount Vernon. Her last 3 races have been very strong.
Yeah, she just seems like she's on the improve and getting better and better. A good test for her and everybody else in race number 9, which brings us to double digits here. Race 10 is our last spin around the main track, and the technical feature on the day, the $200,000 Claiming Crown Jewel at a mile and a furlong. And as I said, the 5 Leia Tone has just come to hand with some crazy fast races for Jason Service. And a horse in Chile who had kept some good company, was sold and purchased privately, a few connections back for a ton of money. Took him a while to get going, but clearly Jason Service has figured out what Leia Tone is all about, and I'm just going to ride, again, a horse who is just in career form.
Yeah, I'm with you. 104 by her speed figure last time out. And they tried the turf, they tried the dirt, and it looks like this is the spot. I've got my long shot in here, and that's Ectobar off the claim for Jorge Navarro. And my thought process with this one is you look and you see a 1.5 miles, 2 miles on the turf in the past. He's got dirtied up form, but one thing we know for sure is the 9 furlongs is no problem, because this is a horse that can run all day long. And again, again, nice to have our Maryland Million Classic winner in here, and Forest Fire, impressive win at the distance last time out.
Yeah, neat horse for sure. He's got speed. There's a lot of speed sign on for sure, but again, a horse that has not needed to take his racetrack with him, has shipped around between Maryland and Parks, and has just been at an A level for John Service. And I look forward to By Frisian Fire, who, you know, quietly turned out to be an okay little stallion.
Yeah, especially in Maryland. They've really had quite a bit of success with him at kind of all levels, a little bit of precocious 2-year-old runners and then some older strong horses as well.
Yeah, Todd had that very good Carter winner who only ran a few times. Just a couple of years ago, his name escapes me, for St. Elias. Do you remember who he is? Yeah, Pete's nodding his head. But yeah, Frisian Fire, he's okay, and he's got the service horse, Forest Fire, in race number 10. Let's close things down, race number 11 here as we wrap up the action. And you've got Safi Joseph Jr., who has run or will be running 3 horses on the day, riding a career best year for him and then some. He's got Tusk, who beat Hieroglyphics last time out. They're rematching here. Hieroglyphics now in the barn of Kieran. And although this is a dirt breeze we're about to show you, I felt it was worthwhile to pull just to see how well Tusk is doing and how well he's acclimated here to South Florida. Smooth as silk in his final prep for today's Claiming Crown Emerald.
Oh, he's a beautiful horse for sure. And first off, the claim for Safi's barn. Hieroglyphics did come back to win and get that elusive, or so it seemed, victory the next time out with a 90 Beyer speed figure. In fact, there were a couple of next out winners from that race at Belmont at the end of October. But Tusk, he's got speed. He's won his last 3 races, and certainly we've seen this quite a bit with Safi and Jorge Navarro claiming off one another and doing well in either direction.
Yeah, and that seems like a rivalry that is not simmering down anytime soon. So, yeah, both guys obviously their reputations and just their resumes speak for themselves. And speaking of which, you've got Jason Service, who, although his barn is obviously bigger than it's ever been, has more quality than it's ever had, he's still pretty active in the claim box and is sending out the likely favorite, the 5, Mugsomatic. And you do get a sense Michael Dubb just so good at maybe looking 2 or 3 steps down the line when he is going to claim one. And I would have to think this was the race they had circled when they jumped in back in mid-August.
Oh, I'm sure Mike Dubb, and I remember speaking to him on Claiming Crown Day a couple of years ago, and he said he loves days like this. And we know a very sharp claiming guy and a horse that's been in good form, freshened up since August, comes back with Paco Lopez, who has also been on a really good roll lately.
Yeah, Paco gobbling up those wins here in South Florida. Geez, he missed half of the Gulfstream Park West. Meat still won the riding title over there. And I do love a day like today, not only just great racing with big fields. I love seeing the real backbone of the game. I mean, these horses that oftentimes will give you 10, 11, 12 starts or run 10, 11, 12 months out of the year, this is their day in the spotlight.
I love the Iron Horse in particular because I think it's a perfect name, because these really are Iron Horses, and we're treated to getting a chance to watch a lot of them here at Gulfstream Park on a regular basis, and now it's their day in the sun.
And we've got the Iron Man. That's right. Pete Aiello coming up with those Claiming Crown Day scratches and changes.